You're listening to the Luxe Life Discovered podcast, where we talk with people who are living a lifestyle that reflects their passion, because we believe everyone should be living their best life, their Luxe life. The show is hosted by Rick Steiner with Steiner Event Group, a premier national event planning company, and co-hosted by Shannon Richmond, the Vice President of the Panama City Beach Chamber of Commerce. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notifications of future episodes. The show is produced by 30A Media and is broadcast on your favorite podcast outlets, as well as YouTube, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TVs, and other major brand smart TVs.
Hello, I'm Rick Steiner with Steiner Event Group. Welcome to Luxe Life Discovered. I'd like to welcome my co-host Shannon Richmond with the Panama City Beach Chamber of Commerce. And our guest today is Ronnie McBrayer, who is with the Rusty Goat.
Thank you.
So, okay, we're in your venue. Tell us a little about the venue first.
This is I was going to say a dual purpose venue, but 3 or 4 different purposes. This building was built 7 or 8 years ago as the home for Simple Faith Church that I lead. The church is about 15 years old, and we were nomads all over the 30A community for years. But when the price of renting a space outpaced the price of actually building something, it was time to do something different. So we traded in our on the road again, moving space to space, and kind of found a permanent home. And we built it also in mind that it could be a performance or a music venue, which it is also that, Warehouse 360. And I guess there have been dozens of organizations over the years that have used this space in some capacity.
So great use of the space, from worship to entertaining to anything, yeah.
Especially on the Gulf Coast here, to think of a space being used 5 or 6 hours a week and sitting vacant otherwise is a bit criminal.
Right.
With
And that is,
build
and that is
the
truth. When you look at the price and the investment, you know, you want to use it more than a lot of times that normally church buildings are used.
We've incubated a couple of schools, homeschool group, a preschool started here, and they've all launched out and gone their own ways. So that's pretty exciting too, to incubate things.
Right. Well, we appreciate you letting us use it as our
You're
home
welcome
today.
anytime.
So, well, good. And then,
Don't tell Rick that.
No,
right.
I have to block his number.
That's true. Yeah. So then also something else that you have is a new retreat, and tell us the name of that and a little bit
Sure.
how that started.
It's called the Rusty Goat, and it's
I like that name.
It's located right at the border, really, between Walton and Bay counties, just north, I should say Bay, Walton, and Washington counties. It's just north of the Bruce community,
Okay.
and about 15 minutes from Freeport. And we just bought it this year, or buying it this year. And it's 9 acres. There's a little farmhouse, a little swimming pool, 3 or 4 barns on it. And 2 years ago now, coming up on 2 years, I contracted COVID, which was not unusual. I think everybody's had it by now, or multiple times. My wife is a school teacher. She came home, headache, cough, and we knew pretty quick what she had. And then 3 days later, I had the symptoms. Well, in 2 weeks, she was fine. And for me, in 2 weeks, I was even worse than when I began. And so that started a whole long process that's ongoing to this day of long COVID.
Okay.
And some people go, oh, that's not real. It's very real, and has been for me. And thankfully, I've been treated by Vanderbilt Long COVID Clinic in Nashville, so I've been traveling back and forth for the last year and a half.
I've not even heard of that.
The long COVID? Yeah.
It's a thing, and
Wow.
and there's multiple manifestations of it. Sometimes someone just carries the virus a long time. In my case, I didn't have active virus, but it activated my immune system, and the immune system wouldn't turn off, so my body was fighting itself.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
Good.
it was really difficult, and so Vanderbilt has done a great job getting me back on my feet. I took leave from here, from everything, for about 6 or 7 months. I just couldn't work, and so they got my respiratory system restored. Though some people would disagree with this, my neurological system is fine now.
Well, at least you have an excuse
That's
now.
right. I do use it from time to time. But I still have some cardiac issues and some allergic response things.
Right.
I had one this morning that derailed me for my first hour this morning. Had to wait for the antihistamines to kick in and that sort of thing. So it's weird, but I'm much, much better. Well, while I was sick with that, I was like, I'm really fortunate. My family is supportive. Where I worked was tremendously supportive. Not everybody could just take leave.
Right.
My community around me was supportive. And I got to thinking about so many folks who would not have and haven't had that kind of experience. And
Sure.
they are often, many times, service workers, whether it be someone like me who's clergy or nurses, social workers, school teachers, anyone that's in a service capacity. And so my wife and I began to think about a place where folks could go just to rest up, short-term stay, a week, 10 days. And we would not want costs to be involved. And we would want to be close enough to the coast that they could enjoy our beaches, but at the same time, a quiet place. So we started looking around and, of course, lo and behold, COVID coincides with the biggest real estate boom in Florida history.
Right.
True.
But we found this little property, and we sort of rolled the dice on it. And so what we're creating there is a place of retreat where someone could be nominated or sponsored, and they can come there at no cost for them or their family.
Isn't that great?
Stay a week, stay 10 days, enjoy the pool.
I nominate myself.
Absolutely. We'll talk after.
Okay.
We'll get you right in. Maybe we can do a 50-50 raffle or something.
Oh, there you go. I'm good at
Sponsor,
that.
get you
I'm
sponsored.
good at that.
And so, they'll have the farmhouse, which is in the process of being restored. And for folks who are listening to this, I'm filthy and sweaty today because I went out to the farm, as these things go, to do one small thing, and it was there
Yeah,
all
just
morning,
all of it,
and
yeah.
crawling around on my hands and knees. So we're restoring that house. The pool has been completely redone and restored now. There's actually going to be farming done on that property this spring.
Oh, who's going to do the farming and who's?
Well,
How
I
does
grew up
that
in I grew up in North Georgia, so I grew up on a
Okay.
farm.
Okay.
And it's in some ways, this is sort of going back to my roots.
Okay.
It's been a long time. I'm not saying I know everything I need to do, especially in Florida soil. We will have an on-site caretaker that lives there going forward, and probably a little livestock too.
Oh my gosh, that's
on
going
the
to be
Probably a
great.
garden. Yeah.
So when are you anticipating your first guest?
Probably spring, early summer of 23, this
Okay.
next year. These things go with liability insurance, making sure that we can get the property safe and sound,
Right.
handicapped accessible. We're going through all those steps right now.
And then if somebody wants to go, how do they, if somebody nominates them, then who pays for that? How do you get a sponsor for them? How do you get the word out to, can they just donate and it helps whoever gets
That-
nominated?
They can, and we have had some folks who I've shared this work with that have really stepped up to say, I want to help renovate this home. One person in particular, I was just sharing with him this dream that I had while I was still coughing up my lungs and talking about this particular property. And he said, "Is this what you want to do? Is this it?" And I said, "I think this is it." And he said, "Go buy it, and we'll figure out how to pay for it." And he just wrote a check, and we'll figure out how to pay for it.
That's amazing.
And so that's beyond your dreams, something
Yeah.
like
Sure.
that happens for someone to partner like that. But we would anticipate if someone gets nominated. I do have a background years ago working with Habitat for Humanity. That's how I ended up on the Gulf Coast.
Oh, okay.
I had no intentions of ever being involved in pastoring a church again, but that's a whole nother story for another podcast. And it was a very intensive screening process. So I do have some experience with how can we find the most qualified person to get here. And then finding either around them associates, friends, workplaces,
Yeah.
congregations, or whatever that can help sponsor them. And if someone can't find a sponsor, but we feel that this person is really deserving and they can't pay, and 10 days away might keep them in the game,
Right. Absolutely.
then we'll get them there. We have a special concern too for parents of special needs children. I have a twin sister. She has a profoundly autistic daughter who's 20 years old now. And over the years, watching her and her husband give themselves completely to that daughter,
Yeah.
and yet they're her only caregiver now as adults. So I think about someone like that, a week's vacation would change their life.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it would recharge
Just,
them.
yeah.
That'd be so nice.
And with so many veterans organizations too, there's a lot of veterans who are still piecing together things, PTSD. A young man came and did some bush hogging at the farm recently, and he's a soldier, was a soldier, and he suffers from PTSD, and he almost wept when I was telling him about what we're going to do. And for him, his PTSD was not directly combat related, for example. Then 2 different helicopter crashes as an MP.
Wow.
And so we don't think, well, there's not an active war, so no one should be suffering from PTSD. But they're doing all those things necessary, in case there is a conflict. And so we're working with some veterans groups here too to.
So they're even able to help, even if they're going to be coming to stay and recharge. Being part of the process is really enabling them to deal with a lot of issues they're facing.
Sure, and if
So-
if someone comes from out of town and they would like to talk to somebody, a therapist or whatever, we'll make that available, but it's not required. We would envision like, hi, glad you're here. Here's the key to the front door, and we'll be here to clean up when you're done. Y'all have a great time.
Man,
Yeah,
how
that
many
is
people can
nice.
stay at one time?
It's a 3-bedroom house with an additional bonus room, and we're guessing 1, 2, 3, 4, a dozen people can stay on site at once.
Golly,
So-
that's going to be such a nice thing for somebody that, I mean, you just don't know when you're at your breaking point, and if you kind of knew that you had this place to go recharge,
Right.
how awesome is that?
Right.
Wow.
And there'll be local groups that will make this space available to 4-H groups if they want to visit. I've already talked to the state of Florida about they want to do a little reforestation with longleaf pine on a portion of it, which I think it would be fantastic to plant some of that back on some of
Yeah.
the open space. It's just a mile from the Muskogee Creek tribal home too. I'm sure they used to live and work that land
Perfect,
as well.
yeah.
And they're dear friends of mine, and we talked about partnership with them as well. So there's it's just in the beginning stages, and didn't even say anything publicly about it till about 6 or 7 weeks
Yeah.
ago. So
Oh,
we're
really?
just getting started.
Oh, we get in on the.
You are
I know it.
This is
I
the
love
first
it.
official interview of any type about it.
I just think it's so interesting. I volunteered at St. Jude in Memphis for every Friday for a little over 5 years. And, it's amazing to meet so many families from across the country. And, you always think it is devastating when they're at St. Jude with the child with some form of cancer. And then there was one family that I'd gotten to know real well. They left, their child had recovered and was in remission. And then a few months later, I saw them back again. And so I asked if, their child was back for, test. And there was a different child, another child of theirs who had a brain tumor.
Oh, my.
And, you don't think about it. You think, well, one is bad, but, sometimes we have like 2 different children that go through that. And I know when they come, the financial part of it not being an issue, because they don't pay, for anything at St. Jude.
Right.
And that family can focus on their child. And this is huge. So when you were telling me about this, that's immediately what I thought about, because those families need that time to recharge, whether they're with their children or with the whole dynamics that, that they deal with all the time.
Right.
Sometimes just getting away, just to have that time away. And this will be more of a country setting, so it's going to be nice in that aspect. So
Right, and they can land at Bay County's airport,
Yeah.
Emerald Coast Airport, and be at the farm in 25 minutes.
right,
I mean, it's that close to that facility, or 35, 40 minutes, be at any number of beaches,
sure,
or never
Yeah.
even leave the property if they choose.
True, and it's options that they have. They're not set on a schedule, and they can kind of just recharge and do it at their own pace.
Nothing
Yeah.
to sell them, we're not there to fix them, not there to do any of those things. Just come and relax and try to recharge.
Right. So where do you see that? Okay, you said 9 acres. Do you see other buildings being built yet, or have you thought that far?
We have thought about some of that. We've thought about certainly there will be a caretaker's cottage at some point soon that will be on site, but still giving privacy to anybody that's using the main house, and some privacy for the caretaker too.
Right.
There may be 1 or 2 other cottages built over time. There's been some discussion even about the possibility of a long-term resident being there out of the Russia-Ukraine war.
Okay.
And that's a very lengthy process, and who knows how that will all get shaken out. But we would certainly entertain that idea. And that would require, building another home. But we really want to do the best we can of keeping it more wild, farm.
Right, and not
wild
over.
land.
Yeah,
There's
that makes
a
sense.
magnificent barn on the property that will convert into a gathering place, even a smaller venue.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a wedding planner.
Yeah.
And people
That's true.
love the
Yeah,
barn.
they do.
It's a
Yeah.
great old barn, great water oak trees that surround it, and we'll put a little saloon floor in it at some point, and an outside kitchen, things like
All right.
that. So it's all in stages. We're eating this elephant one bite at a time, best we can.
Well, sure. Well, I'm glad you thought about doing it and took the initiative to do it.
Well,
So-
there's not a retreat setting anywhere that we know of in the state of Florida like this.
Okay. That's
There's
great.
comparable property in southeast Georgia, but not one specifically designed this way. So, it feels, as you and I were talking behind the scenes before we started
Yeah.
recording today, this whole area can have such an eclectic feel to it. where
Right.
Folks come here for the sake of creativity, for rest, for a different lifestyle maybe than the routine that they've had back home. And this sort of seems to fit with that.
Yeah.
To-
Yeah.
to-
Well, I was thinking too, there's so many local artists in the area. There's so many things you could do, pulling in the talents from so many locals. I was just thinking of, like, just now, several people I could refer to you that would probably enjoy coming out and being part of something like this.
Oh, we'd love to meet them.
So, yeah.
You could probably get a boatload of volunteers.
We've had
Yeah.
a couple work days already,
Oh, you
and,
have?
and we're swarmed pretty well with that.
That's so
Which was
good.
great.
Yeah.
A lot of painting. We had this the redneck in me will come up. We had this massive burn pile. It was the most fun to call
Now I could
forestry.
get
I
in-
did call forestry.
Yeah.
And I told them we were doing it, and I got my permit. But it took about 15 folks just to guard that thing that day, and we did it before this
The drive.
this dry spell that
Right.
we've had.
Well, I can get
just
a
want everybody to know that we're being
destruction.
safe.
Yeah, I can destruct anything. I can't, construction, we're kind of lacking, but destroying and burning, I can do those. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is important.
Yeah.
because
Right.
Property like
If I
that
call-
stuff
yeah,
needs
right.
to be torn down.
Well, I'm your person then. If I call you, if you have like a building campaign, you're like, Rick, I don't think you're the person for this.
Yeah, we need a
We'll
little
find
bit.
something
We
to
need a
do.
different
Yeah.
expertise with it.
Something to do.
So what's, like when you have your first guest, it's going to be, I'm curious it's going to be fun to see who that lucky family
Oh,
is
yeah.
and, their story, and then also how they were selected to be the first one. So that's going to be
Yeah, we're looking forward to
interesting.
that too. And we figured that if we can do 26 weeks, half the year with guests, that would still leave enough space and time for cleanup and recovery, and for the property to be available on particular weekends for local organizations too.
Right.
Especially that barn for a wedding.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to work those in too.
Right. You're right.
And we would hope with some of the farming too. I can't say right now with planning that, we're promising to be the organic farm, but we will be a very responsible,
Right.
do responsible farming. And we hope that some of what we can raise, and believe it or not, it's more difficult than it sounds. We would love to get fresh fruits and vegetables to needy families.
Not only use it for there, but also supply it to the
to
area.
supply
Yeah.
to folks.
That's good.
And that's a challenge. I mean, we've all done the canned food drives. We do those all the time. And, I've been guilty of this. I'm not saying you've been guilty of this, but, get rid of the water chestnuts and the turnip
Right,
greens
right.
and anything else that's in a can. Let's just go take that to the food bank or whatever. And sometimes poor people, and we don't think of that in this beautiful, bountiful community, there's grinding poverty just north of the
Yeah.
beaches.
Mm-hmm.
Those folks are often deprived of just the healthiest of foods. If some way we could, make a little dent in that. We're not going to change the world, but we can make little dents in
Oh,
things.
my
Right.
gosh, one
Well,
person at a time.
Yeah. You change the life of one and you've already conquered your your biggest goal.
Yeah.
You just have just a huge servant's heart. I can just hear it in your voice, and I see it in your excitement, and I'm excited to see what comes out of this.
Thank you. And you know what happened with me and my family, myself being sick. You know, I didn't know how I'd recover, and the recovery is ongoing, but I knew I'd be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because a lot of support, and I've been blessed in that regard. But it's not because I deserved it and someone else did.
Right.
It's just how it
Played
played
out.
out. So anytime there's a difficulty that any of us go through, we ought to be able to take that and help somebody with it.
Yep.
And that's our biggest hope that my wife and I have, that we'll be able to do that over time.
So the Rusty Goat.
The Rusty Goat.
How did the name come about?
Well, we had dear friends who left South Walton last year. Gary and Lynn Hedges are their names. Gary's a native Australian, and they were retiring back to his native Australia. And they were just cleaning out their little house at the beach. And my wife is a junk collector. It's one reason why I probably need to go burn a couple of those barns down in the farm.
So you can't store it, yeah.
That's right. So she was taking like some of their farming decorations, flower garden decorations, and one of them was this rusty goat on a rusty stick, and he's about 4 feet tall. Just a little bitty goat, but he's on I don't even know what you call those things, but he's on a pole. And of all things for my wife to say, I'm going to get rid of this, she said, we just need to get rid of that. And here I am. And I'm like, you can't do that. It's my spirit animal. That's what I said. Right. Okay. And she just stuck it in the backyard. And so when I'd be out, I'd say, oh, hey, Rusty Goat, hey, Rusty Goat. And then we were trying to name this thing, and it just kind of came to us. You know, you're rusty, you feel a little washed out, you feel like you're on your last leg.
Yeah.
I'm nothing now but a decoration, that kind of a feeling. And it just seemed right. It's going to be this little farm, and that's where it came from. And
that's pretty cool. I like that.
It
Yeah.
just stuck. So it was
We'll
just
have
one
to
of
go
those.
with you.
It's
Yeah.
already on the farm.
Oh, okay.
It's by this big oak tree in the front yard, just
Aw.
waiting, to say hello to folks when they arrive.
So what are the next steps in this process?
We are finishing the renovation of the farmhouse right now,
Okay.
raising some dollars for that.
How are you raising your money?
I'm not out there really, not doing fundraisers per se.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just having coffee and beers with people.
Okay.
I just sit down and tell the story and say, this is where we are. I've always been a terrible fundraiser, even the years I've worked in the nonprofit world. But I felt like I was really bad at raising money, but I was pretty good at telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
The story does it.
And so if I can just get with folks and say, this is what we're dreaming of, then, we probably, we're 25% of the total funds to retire the debt and do the renovation already in.
Wow.
And so that's kind of the phase one, get the house right so it can receive guests, get the farm ground safe, and retire the debt. And that farm will never have to labor under any financial duress ever again at that
That's
point.
fantastic.
So any debt that we have, we want it to be short term and get it gone. And it's not bank debt per se. It's the debt we owe that individual who wrote that first check
Yeah.
and said, in this market, if this is the property, go get it. So
Wow. That's unreal.
yeah, so we're doing that, and then in 23 we'll turn our direction to making assessments of families and that sort of thing, because by then we'll be able to, the house will be pristine, and it needs a new roof, and the interior is almost complete. Now again, people can't see me. I'm sitting here in dusty pants and a blue tape Band-Aid on a finger because I went by there. At least
Yes,
they can, but
yeah.
those that are listening, there's a massive blue Band-Aid on my middle finger. I'll not show it to the camera since it is my middle finger. But I just stopped by to take care of one. This is how it happens. Stopped by to take care of one little thing this morning and nearly cut my hand off. But
Hey. Yeah.
Get,
Well,
get things done.
that's
it
true.
done.
Yeah. 38 TV. I mean, they're going to see the finger. So yeah. Just be careful. Yeah. No. So, well, good. I'm in my mind, of course, being an event planner, there's all kinds of things going through my mind, and like what you could do at Christmas for the local children, and we'll talk more about that as well.
yeah,
But
yeah.
there's just a lot of opportunities there, and I like the fact that you're not only focusing on families that can come in to recharge, but you're looking at the needs of the local community as well, and keeping local ties and helping out locals in need. I think that's great.
I don't think we have to choose one or the other
Right,
in that regard.
right.
I think we can
Incorporating
we can do
every,
both.
yeah, exactly. And I just think it's just a great concept, and to have that vision, I'm big, and Shannon knows this too. It's like bringing vision to life, and because we all think of great ideas, but then we lack that commitment or that follow through sometimes, and I'm guilty of that too, But it's taking that step of faith, and even if people think you're crazy, hey, that's like you just have to do it sometime. This is not crazy.
I don't think anything. Well, let me back up. Anything of any value that's really a value in our world, some crazy person started it.
Well, you're right.
I mean,
you have to be a little crazy
they
to
looked at it and thought, this could be. I mean, since we're on 30A television, the whole phenomenon that is 30A.
Yeah.
If you go to Robert Davis and others who envisioned this idea of what living at the beach could look like, and there was a time not many years ago. You couldn't give away lots out in the middle of nowhere in Walton County. Who wants to go
Don't
there?
I wish I knew that now.
Don't we all?
Right. Yeah.
So, with a little chutzpah and a little, craziness, that we can make the world a better place.
Yeah. All right, Ronnie, tell us again, or mention your website, and is there a social media like Instagram, Facebook?
There's a couple places that
Okay.
someone can find the Rusty Goat. They can find it at my personal website, which is www.ronniemcbrayer.org, and that's RonnieMcBrayer. And then there's also on Facebook. I almost said the Facebook. On Facebook, sound like my dad. On Facebook, they can find us at the Rusty Goat Coastal Farm and Retreat.
All right, great. And that's your website is .org.
.org.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah.
I
Well,
love that.
Yeah, I do too. And thanks so much for being our
Oh,
guest
it's my
today. It was great to hear about this, and we look forward to even doing our podcast out there at some
That
Yeah,
point.
what if we
So
did
that
a
would,
live, like, that would be amazing.
it would be, yeah.
Let's do that.
Well,
And then I could just stay the night, for just one recharge night.
Right.
she's,
Why not?
Put her in the
pool
barn.
will be ready.
we'll put her in the
Okay.
barn.
Sleep in the barn,
Yeah,
whatever you
that's
know.
right.
With the Rusty Goat.
That's right. Okay, well, thanks so much for joining us again today for Luxe Life Discovered, and we'll see you on our next podcast.
Check out Lux Life Discovered on Facebook and Instagram and on 30a.tv. See you next time on Lux Life Discovered.